Greetings, I am Commander Anaconda, and welcome to Elite Dangerous Type-10 Defender Review. Start with, let us have a look around the cockpit of the Type-10 Defender. So, as can be seen, we have an absolutely fantastic view and canopy all the way around, with the co-pilots actually sitting below this primary seat here. And yeah, this gives an absolutely fantastic view all the way around, and also what I do quite like is directly above, which the other large ships do falter a bit. Unfortunately, this does mean that you're a little bit more exposed, so this could get broken during combat, so a Class A life support or plenty of refuel bottles would be useful. Looking at the in-game description of the Type-10, it's a collaboration essentially to do with the Thargoids, and it does seem that this ship has been tailored specifically to face off against Thargoids, which is a very interesting design. It is, as can be seen, pretty similar to the Type 9 in the hologram there. It's got a little bit more detailings and also the spoiler. It's also not as good a cargo ship because of the other weapon systems it contains, of which it has a fair number. It has 4 large, 3 medium and 2 small hardpoints, and 8 utility, which is a considerably increase over the Type 9, but the Type 9 is a hauler ship and not a combat vessel. So really, the Type 10 should more be compared to the Anaconda, which does claim to have slightly higher maneuverability. I will be comparing my Type 10 here to that of my Anaconda, both of which are going to be fitted out to face off against Thargoids. I've already kitted out the ship, so let us have a look at see how it has been done. So, the hardpoints are at the top, are 2 large at the top here and here, and the other 2 large are underneath the wings there. Very good positions for multi-crew turret control, but not that good for fixed, due to them being on the extremities of the craft. If you're getting hits in with one side, the other side could very well be missing. Also, the medium turrets or medium weapons are also in good position for turrets. Again, 2 at the top and 1 is centrally underneath here. The 2 small are either side of the cockpit here. I've gone for 4 AX multi-cannons and 3 flak cannons to take on the Thargons and the Thargoids respectively, and then 2 small pulse lasers just as turrets, just help take on those shields when they're increased, as can be seen here. As for utility mounts, it has a good number, so I've gone for the neutralizer field, the Xeno scanner, a single heatsink launcher so that I can overheat the ship to remove caustic damage, and then have a few shield boosters and a couple of point defense. The point defense, I have 1 at the top and 1 at the base, and these components are spread roughly all the way around the ship, so there's not too much to consider as to where you're placing them, just really with the point defense, 1 on the top and 1 on the bottom to get that nice full coverage, which they can do quite admirably. The core internals are quite interesting in this ship. They are quite expensive, as always with the composites, with the base military grade being almost as much as the base hull, and the others, the mirrored and reactors, being twice as much. Remember the discounts of the Founders World I am utilising here. The thrusters are also very, very expensive, clocking in at around about 50 million for most people, or 45 for those with access to the Founders World. The FSD is also very expensive, being a Class 7 as well, and this does provide a fairly decent jump, though again not quite as good as the Anaconda, but better than the Corvette. Life support is fairly cheap for a large ship, only being a Class 5, which is nice lightweight, and so won't interfere too much. Now, the power distributor. This is a point of contention I've seen throughout the community, mostly because a Class 6 is very weak. It's really a couple of grades down from the actual other combat ships. So the combat ships have a class 8, and such as the Corvette and Anaconda. The cutter has a class 7. The 6 is really back down to the Clipper, and is actually weaker than the Python. The Python has a class 7. This does make this ship very, very weak when using lasers, because they draw too much power distributor, and it just will not be able to sustain fire. Even maxing out on multi-cannons, this can only just about keep all multi-cannons firing with all power to weapons. Without power to weapons, this ship suffers massively. Except when you're utilising AX weapons, because the anti-Thargoid weapons drain extremely little power, which makes them very ideal for a low power distributor like this. Which also lends to why this ship is considered a Thargoid hunting vessel rather than a general purpose combat ship. Sensors grade 4, so again, nice and cheap. And it has a 64 fuel tank, which again is useful because this is a very heavy hull and it uses a lot of fuel per jump. For optional internals, I've gone for Biowave Shield Generator, which does unfortunately give a fairly low shield level. But if going up to, say, the full class A, it only goes up a little amount, just because the hull is so heavy. And this is with the shield boosters on as well, which is a little bit of a problem. Fortunately for it though, it has plenty of internal slots. So I have a fuel scoop, and a fighter hangar with 2 X fighters, good number of module and hull reinforcements, because this will allow for extended combat with the Thargoids, and has given a full integrity of 3,530, and none of this has been engineered. I should ideally engineer all of this for heavy duty to increase that hull reinforcement and make this as tough as possible. Because I do believe making this as tough as possible is an absolutely fantastic ability. As this hull level is very similar to my combat fitted Corvette, and that has already been partly engineered. It's not fully engineered yet, but definitely partly. And this is right up there with that integrity. Right, so I believe it's time to take this out and launch it. There is a considerable problem with the Type-10. It's enormous. And it does have a little bit of a tendency to drift heavily because of how large and massive it is. The thrusters are not that good. But let's just try head towards the centre of the mouse slot and see what happens. I'm going to get through without crashing this time? Nope. Even then, still bash. Just because of how huge it is. And those large wings are also a bit of an issue. There's a very interesting sound to the thrusters, and it does have a decent capacitor. Theirs doesn't use too much on boost, which is very nice. Let's deploy weapons. You can see the spread. See, the convergence of the large multi-cannons is quite a way to the sides. So, with the weapons all deployed, let's have a look at the external of the ship. There's a very large number of engines at the rear there, which is to be expected with such a large ship. Good number of glowy bits, which is always a nice little feature. And here we can see 2 weapons on the top on one side, and one's over on this side, with the large ones at the sides, and with the mediums more towards the centre. At the front, you see the primary cockpit with the 2 co-pilots underneath the primary at the top. So, Primary Commander does have a better view sight than the others, but they do also have nice open cockpits as well. medium in the centre has pretty much dead centre in all aspects of the ship. Gives it also a very good firing arc, along with the other two large 4-turreted weaponry. So all going into this ship is a very good multi-crew vessel, and multi-crew aspect would help counteract the fact of that weakness in the power distributor by having those additional pips you can put into weapon systems or other systems if everything is into the weapons. As for maneuverability, it's not. This is a huge, heavy, slow ship, and that can be definitely seen by all of its movement characteristics. It turns slowly, it drifts quite heavily, and its max speed is horrifically poor. Now, most of these can be adjusted by engineering, but by default it is a fairly sluggish, lumpy ship, which is to be expected due to the base hull being a Type 9. However, I would like to compare the stats of this ship to the Anaconda, also fitted for facing off against Thargoids. So let's head over to where I've placed my ships. So my combat Anaconda is at Astro. Let's head on over there and see. This is going to be a 32 jumps, so I'll be back soon. One thing I am noticing with the Type 10 is how cool it runs. I am scooping at maximum here, and my heat is just not going up. But even when I charge the FSD at maximum stuff there, it takes a while for it to get up. And in fact, my ship is cooling down before I overheat. This is incredible heat reduction here. Very impressive. Okay, I've arrived at Copernicus Observatory, where my Thargoid hunting Anaconda is. Let's see how this thing docks. It is absolutely enormous, and rather than scraping my head like I do with the Anaconda and the Corvette, I need to be quite near the bottom, but not too low, because there are a couple of seats below me as well. So this thing is just not moving.
Heavy traffic ahead, Commander. Fly safely.
It is quite the brick. I was noticing that in Super Cruise as well. Let's see if we can get through Toe Strike and then the mail slot. Excellent. So, it does, like all the large ships, does have a little bit of a knack in order to land. Akin to, I think, more like the Beluga liner, which also has odd shaped components, like the big spoilers. Still, let's dock it down and go into the outfitting screen. So, for reference, we have a pitch of 22.21, a roll of 40.38, and a yaw of 8.08 on the Type 10 for the thrusters. A hull integrity of 3,530 and a shield of 620. Top speed of 182 and boost of 222. So, for the Combat Anaconda, we have a pitch of 28.18, a roll of 67.62, and a yaw of 11.27, which is quite considerably higher than that of the Type 10. The top speed is also that little bit faster at 203, and its boost speed is 270, also that little bit faster. Going over to the shields. The shields, despite being a Class 7 rather than a Class 8, are higher at 882. And also have been able to fit in a shield sail bank due to the increased number of internal slots in the Anaconda. which I was having difficulty fitting in on the Type-10, though during combat I found this minimal effectiveness. The hull strength itself is also that little bit higher. I have it at 3667.5. Again, just slightly better than that of the Type-10, but to be perfectly honest, the difference there is negligible. So, what does this mean? This means that the Anaconda is slightly tougher, slightly more manoeuvrable, and slightly faster than the Type-10. I also prefer the turret position, or fixed weapon position, due to them all being in this central T-shape, whereas the Type-10, I do feel that in order to utilise it effectively, you really need turrets and or multi-crew, whereas the Anaconda, I feel, is a little bit superior to fixed weaponry. And to be very honest, is pretty similar for multi-crew as well, with regards to the primary armament. For the secondary armament, the Anaconda does suffer a little bit, having one less medium slot, but that, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't make a tremendous amount of difference. So, in terms of the cost of the ships, the Type-10, if I was to sell it, would be 442 million. On the other hand, if I were to sell the Anaconda, it would be 464 million. So there is a noticeable difference, probably around about 10% in the cost difference. Obviously, when you sell a ship, you do lose a little bit of money, and also I have got the Founders World discounts. But to be perfectly honest, I feel that once you are building a dedicated ship to fighting Thargoids, and you can afford the hull reinforcements, not the hull reinforcements, the hull bulkheads, reinforcements, all the top grade stuff I've equipped on here, and being able to afford one of the large ships generally, I consider the difference between 414 to 464 to be fairly minor. As such, I don't feel that the Type-10 is as good a ship as the Anaconda for facing off against Thargoids. But proof is in the pudding. Let us go and have a go at taking on a Thargoid with the Type-10. One thing I do need to note is that I have got point defense on this Type-10 rather than shield cell, because the shield cell I found was need additional heat sinks to compensate for it, and that has allowed me to have the point defense, which is something I don't have on the Anaconda. So really the difference in shielding is less because I haven't got as many shield boosters on the Type-10 as I do as on the Anaconda. Let's see if we can get out of the station though without smashing into things. Nope. Nice warning lights, very powerful in saying I am being useless. But otherwise, as normal. Let's just go out. And I get fined for the police ramming into me.
Attention.
Bar for the course.
Nominal separation distance within this area.
Right, let's go have a look for some Thargoids. So, there's a Thargoid in this area. Let's deploy. It's gonna, I am drifting really heavily. So I'm just going to do a basic scan. I'm going to do a discovery scanner by mistake as well. So let's have a nice scan of me. I haven't also got a fighter, so this isn't going to go well. I just want to have a go at taking out one of its hearts. How does it maneuver? It maneuvers very poorly on 1 pip, which is basically how I want to do it. Convergence is nice with the turrets, though to be perfectly honest, that is not surprising. These multi-cannons there are firing nicely for me. Just try to take out a load of those little swarm guys as well. I am feeling very, very sluggish. Point defense is functioning, which is nice, though it doesn't stop all the projectiles. Shields are offline. See how well they regenerate. With such a large power thing, they should regenerate fairly quickly. To be honest, I am finding this not as effective as the Anaconda, partly because I am using turrets which are weaker than their fixed variants. But I don't feel like I would be happy using fixed with this at all. So, components are being rendered inoperable. We can't take out any of those little drones. So the hull integrity has now been compromised. This is a bit of a problem. And I'm just not doing that much damage. So I think that's mainly more to do with me as a pilot rather than any weakness of the ship itself. So I am going to just retreat. I should probably just jump to another system, but don't really mind. Give me a chance to talk. So, the weakness of this ship is that it isn't very maneuverable, and it doesn't really feel cheaper than the Anaconda. And do you think it's pretty similar in terms of for turrets as the Anaconda? And I do feel it is definitely designed for Thargoid hunting and for multi-crew. Don't think it works so well for solo, and particularly for a good number of PvE situations due to that class 6 power distributor just not being able to cope with the high demands of the PvE weaponry. For Thargoid hunting, it is very, very good. Has a huge amount of hull and nice quick regenerating shields. The only weakness I feel it has, though, is its speed and maneuverability, having great difficulty keeping up with the Thargoid, and that limits you to utilising turrets, which are just weaker than the fixed variants. That said, putting crew in there and having those turrets being operated by people rather than the automated AI would be very, very beneficial. And I could see it being a very good craft in multi-crew, particularly for facing against Thargoids. Lastly, just like to see how much this thing costs to repair. Shouldn't be too much, but it is always a nice thing to know regardless. So advanced maintenance, a lot of the components are quite expensive, so the fact they cost a lot is acceptable. It's no different to any others, really. The hull itself is pretty cheap, as is the cost of repairing integrity. Let's just repair everything and the integrity, and restock all. But I'm very pleased with the Type-10. I don't feel it's considerably much difference to that of the Anaconda, but I do think it makes a good anti-Thargoid vessel, even though I'm still going to be using my Anaconda for facing off against Thargoids. But that's all for now, so thank you very much for watching this episode of Elite Dangerous Ship Reviews. Until next time, goodbye!